Good afternoon. It is great to be seeing people here, and I want to make sure everyone can hear me okay. I am Dr. Scott Hunter. I'm a professor of psychiatry and behavioral neuroscience and pediatrics and director of neuropsychology, as well as a member of the trauma interest work group. And I am here today as the moderator for what I know is going to be an incredibly engaging and very useful discussion from Tynisha Jointer LCSW. And Ms. Jointer is one of the behavioral health specialists at Chicago Public Schools, and she is additionally the 2021 Transformative Educational Leadership Fellow. She is also something I like to share for her, now officially tenured with CPS. Nope, not yet. Okay, or yes, yay. Absolutely perfect. And we're very pleased to hear that. This is a talk that is going to emphasize engagement. It is going to emphasize equity, advocacy, and empowerment, and how we can be thinking about and moving to take care of ourselves within space. As one of the key leaders with CPS's Healing Centered project, Tynisha Jointer has a lot of incredible experience and knowledge to share with us with regard to how we make sense of and move from this year that has been a particular challenge, not only for the individuals who we service and support and ideally help move forward, but also for ourselves as individuals who are doing this work. The last thing I want to say before I turn it over to Tynisha is that she is also the co-author of a forthcoming book, The Art of Becoming Indispensable: What School Social Workers Need to Know in Their First 3 Years of Practice. And she is going to be enlightening us on that knowledge that she has accumulated that can be a very important and useful thing to us. What I also want to make sure that everyone knows is that, one, we're excited to have you with us, and two, we are live streaming, and this is being recorded and will be available on the Mansueto page that we'll be sharing. And if everyone who is coming on, if you can also put yourselves on mute, please, that would be great.
Got it.
Says we are definitely getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you, and try to keep that. I also want to encourage everyone to use the chat while Tynisha's talking with us, to engage, to share, and also to pose questions that then I will be able to alert Tynisha to. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it now over to Tynisha Jointer. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming in and being a part of this space. I am so humbled and honored to be here. This is your lunchtime, right? And I want to invite you to turn your cameras on if you like while your lunchtime. This is my lunchtime, so I'm going to be in this space just enjoying my lunchtime with you all. So I'm going to invite you to turn your camera on. For those of you who are familiar with my work and my practice, I always start my sessions off with music. So as I cue up my my share screen, because I'm a little tech challenged, I'm gonna get y'all some tunes, and I hope you all enjoy these tunes. Feel free to dance and groove, because I might. Let me just say that. All right, and I'm gonna get us set up. Yep, so this is what I wrote to. As our friends are turning on cameras, give somebody a wave, say, hey, I see you. Let people know you see them. As I was thinking through what to play, I wanted to start with this. But then I said, oh, I don't know if they're ready. I don't know if y'all ready for this. Is this your type of Friday? Because this is my Friday, okay? This is a payday, Friday, party song. Everybody, what space does this put you in? I hope it's a good one, because it surely is a great song for me. All of my college days, okay? You didn't think you was coming in for this type of Friday, but this is what we're doing. And then I said, what about this song? When you put your phone in the air. All right. So just wanting to set the mood, give us some space. I wanted to make sure that I welcomed you into space the same way that I do anytime that I am facilitating both remote and in person. I always find value and joy in setting the space with some music. And so this is how we're getting started this morning. And the topic of discussion today is the power of healing when faced with harm. I want to give a disclaimer. I am coming to y'all in my most full, authentic Black girl joy self this afternoon. I am just so excited to be in this space with you. I am presenting on behalf of Tynisha Jointer and Tynisha Jointer alone. While I belong to a number of organizations and I'm affiliated with a number of different groups, I am coming to you today on behalf of Tynisha Jointer. And I want to give to you my absolute best in my hour or so with you all today. And I invite you to be a part of this conversation, right? So please utilize the chat as an opportunity for us to exchange and grow and learn with each other. And so you all are my co-facilitators. What I hope that you learn today is that there's this idea of space, right? Thinking about space and what type of space am I sitting in now? What space do I belong? How am I coming into space, right? I hope that this can begin some conversations around our healing and overall well-being. So with that, first and foremost, I have to give some acknowledgments. I have some amazing people in my life, and I have to be sure to acknowledge them. I am who I am because of the amazing people who give me the space, right? The space to be myself in every version of myself. So first and foremost, shout out to the Black Intel crew. These are folks that I'm in a lovely fellowship with, transformative educational leaders. You all push, motivate, and encourage me and inspire me every day. I am so blessed for your wisdom, your love and support. To my sisters, both of my blood sisters are here. Hey, y'all. Don't tell mom and dad when they see this picture coming next. But both of my blood sisters are here. And then my sisters in bond, my fit friends, Sonia, Shyla, all of my folks who love and pour into me. Shout out to y'all. To Micah Moody, I love this girl. She is amazing. Micah Clark Moody is a UFC student who does amazing work. So I hope you all know her if you don't know her. To the generation behind me, my cousins who are on this line, hey, y'all. Y'all got this. And to the ones before me, my grandmother, who, again, I am because you are, and these are my parents. And so I just wanted to make space for them as I share who I am with you. So I am Tynisha Jointer. This is me as a kid. I am the second child of my mother. And so this is like one of the few pictures that my mother has of me, because, you know, when you're the second child, you don't get all the pictures like the first one get. So this is me, always full of joy and happiness, super silly at all times. This is me as an adult, just trying to take on the world, being unafraid to take different challenges, pushing myself in space and in time. And this is me with my homegirls. We went to a concert. I call myself photobombing her, and this lady photobombed me. How dare she? Right. But again, these are people who allow me to be my full and authentic self. They make space for me. And I appreciate you all for the space that you make for me. I am a world traveler, a wanderer. I am an advocate, I am a creator, and I am a connector. Other spaces where I show up, again, as Scott mentioned, I currently serve as the behavioral health specialist in the Office of Social and Emotional Learning. I support the implementation of all of our Tier 2 interventions and leading some of the work with the Healing Center Project. I'm also an Education Pioneer Fellow, a member of the Alumni Board, Center for Conflict Resolution, Pilot Light, Transformative Education, and Educators for Excellence. So I bring all of these versions of myself to you all in this space today. And again, just wanting to give you some, y'all see me down here with Dr. Jackson. Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson, for your years of service and dedication to this district, and for listening to me being animated as ever at one of our conferences. So again, just wanting to share more of who I am in space. Before we get started, I want to give you all some glossary, some key things that I'm going to talk about for our time together. I want us to think about the word acknowledgement, not only as what we know Webster, right, or Webster to tell us what acknowledgement means, but I want us to think about acknowledgement as a way to disrupt normalized trauma. We know that our students may come to us experiencing some trauma, right? We know that our families and communities have experienced it. We all have experienced this collective trauma of COVID-19, which I will speak to. But I really want us to think about acknowledgement as more than just, yeah, this happened, but how do we acknowledge that this happened, but create the space for us to disrupt the normalizing of trauma. Activate, when I talk about activate, that means to do something. That means I'm calling you out. I want you to tell your people to tell your people to tell your people to do something, right? So let's activate. Affirm. How do we create spaces for folks to be heard and understood? I think that everybody is planning for how do we reopen schools, we have to reopen schools with this idea of affirming what our students have experienced, affirming how COVID-19 has impacted them both individually and as a collective. And so I want to encourage you all to think about affirm in this way. Healing, recognizing that healing is individual. It's some individual and some collective healing that we must do, but it is evolving. It is an evolving destination. There's no one place like, boom, I'm healed and all is well in the world, right? Like that is an evolving process. And when we think about space, or when I talk about space, I'm going to talk about space in the context of a physical and emotional dwelling or way to exist, right? And so I will weave in and out of these definitions. And as I said in my disclaimer, I will weave in and out of all of the components of me, right? So you're gonna get some professional me, you're gonna get a double negative in there. Don't freak out. I know it's a double negative. It is okay, right? And then the zombie apocalypse, by no means am I minimizing the experience of COVID-19, but when COVID-19 started, I felt like, oh my God, this is a zombie apocalypse, right? We were going, everything was going haywire. And so if you hear me slide into that word, that's where that comes from. So I just want to elevate that for you all. Now that I've given you who I am, how I'm coming to you, the space that I am in, hopefully this space feels good for you. I hope you feel welcome in this space. I want to check in with you. I want to check in with y'all. Which Oprah, everybody loves Oprah. Which Oprah are you today? I want you to drop that in the chat. Where are you? Which Oprah are you? Drop in the chat. How are you coming to this space today? Which Oprah are you? 7. Okay, let me check out 7. Okay. All right. Okay. I love you have a mix 4, 7, and 8. Okay. Okay. I think I'm coming in definitely number 1, right? Everybody get a car. You get a car. You get everybody's getting a car with me today. So I'm coming in definitely as a number 1. And so I thank you for sharing. How are you coming into this space? Again, as we think about reopening schools, I think it's important for us to make space and opportunities for our young people to share this same thing, right? How are they entering the classroom? How are they entering the building, right? How are they entering space? More importantly, I think for us as adults, it's important for us to do this. Think deeply about how are we really feeling? Like, no, for real feeling, right? That you are juggling and managing all of these things in this world, right? That you are being a mom, a dad, a brother, sister, you're parenting your parents, because I know I am, right? That you are doing all of these amazing things that you're doing. How are you really feeling? Then I beg us to ask the question, how often are we thinking deeply about how are we really feeling? I know for me, sometimes I say, oh my God, I'm great. And on the inside, right, I am really struggling. Right. And I'll find myself in a meeting where one person says that one thing and it sets me off. And because I didn't come as my authentic self, right, that one thing takes me over the edge in a way that's different. I imagine that same thing happens in a classroom, right? When you are not feeling your authentic self and you are coming in and you putting that front on like, oh yeah, hey kids, hi, everything is great. And it's not. And so I ask you to take some time with yourself in this space, because we all friends, we all family. We friends that we just ain't had the chance to meet yet, right? So I want you to think deeply. No, how am I really feeling in this space? What are you really bringing into this shared space? This is my largest lunch date I've ever been on. So what are you really bringing on this lunch date right now? And more importantly, I would love to know from you all, if you care to drop in the chat, what is it that you need or you want in this moment? What is it that you may need or want in this moment? I'm going to give you just some space to think through that. And with that, I'd like us to take a quick moment together just to do some collective grounding, to make space for ourselves in this moment. And so I'm going to talk us through some prompts. I'm going to ask us to do some collective breathing together. And I invite you to be on this journey with me. So if you don't mind, you can be seated, you can be standing. I want us on a count of 3. We're going to take some inhales and exhales together. Are y'all ready? Because I'm ready. Okay, I see some head nods. All right, on a count of 3, 1, 2, 3, breathe in, blow out, breathe it in again, blowing out, breathing in, blowing out. As you continue to take those collective breaths together, I invite you to tap into your senses. I want you to look around your room. What is in your room? What's something that's in your room that perhaps you haven't noticed from the busyness of your day? Look for that something in your room that perhaps helps support your healing and you didn't even know it. Breathing in, breathing out. I want you to tap into sound. What do you hear? What do you hear in your space? Breathing in, breathing out. What do you smell? What do you smell? What's coming up for you? Breathing in, breathing out. What do you feel? Be it up under you, holding you down, holding you together. What are you feeling? And with that last feeling, I want us to take our last big breath together. 1, 2, 3, inhale. Exhale. How did that feel for you all? Just to stop and take a minute and examine the space that you're in. Did you notice something that I've never noticed? That as I'm sitting here, I hear the birds chirping. I hear them loud and clear. I hear my, what I hope is my heat still running, right? I hear my computer. I never really hear this thing. I thought this thing was just this, but I hear that, right? Because I am making space and I'm giving myself the time and the opportunity to just really tap into the world around me. And I encourage you all, again, as we reopen schools and we're going back into buildings and even in your home, right? Because I believe that if you don't experience things like this, right, it becomes harder for me to say, oh, I'm gonna do this with my kids, right? But when you get to experience these types of moments, I hope that through experiencing this, it will motivate and encourage you to come into space with your young people and do the same thing. And I hope this felt good for you. I hope that this felt relaxing. And I hope that this is something that you share. What I also want to say really quickly is what is said here stays here. I mean, except for the fact that this is streaming, right? But what's said in the chat, that stays in the chat. But what is learned here, I want that to leave here. I want you to leave this space and take every strategy, technique, every conversation, every journal prompt, because yes, I'm going to give you journal prompts. I want you to take all of those things and have conversations with your barber, with your beautician, with your friend, with your cousin, whoever you need to have the conversation with, right? Let's make sure that we continue to make space for each other, because just that act of making space can be healing. So some things I'm going to do today is acknowledge the fatigue. I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired. And when I say I'm tired, y'all, I be tired. I'm going to acknowledge fatigue. I'm going to affirm fatigue, and I'm going to acknowledge racism. Because yes, it's real. It's a thing. We know that, right? And then what I hope that comes from this is that we can begin to activate healing. So why are we so tired? Well, I mean, look at us. We are so tired because we find ourselves so consumed in the go, right? We are living in an age where we are always juggling, constantly juggling, running, doing, going. So from work to social media to school, parenting our children. We have all of the social movements that we're involved in, right? And those things can become overwhelming. And then there's COVID-19. And I wanted to acknowledge it, like, some of us were tired even before COVID-19. What COVID-19 did was it put a big old flashlight on all of the ways in which we are stretched as human beings. COVID-19 acknowledged or highlighted some of the things that were already exacerbated, right? It highlighted the disparities in health, right? It highlighted some of the disparities in access to technologies and communities, right? That COVID-19 was a beacon of light in that way, because it made us stop and really pay attention to things that otherwise, in the busyness of my day and of my life, I probably would have ignored or dismissed. And so some of the impacts of COVID-19 is we're all grieving normal, right? I can't wait for the day that I can go to the store without having to think, oh man, I forgot my bag. I need to get my mask. I got to get my hand sanitizer and my gloves. I can't wait for that day, right? And I know that it's going to be a while, and that's okay. But then that's the feeling of isolation. There's some stress that we're feeling, and oftentimes we are living in fear. And so I want to acknowledge this for you as adults, and also for our students, that yeah, we're tired. And I want to encourage you to make space to admit that you're tired, to take an opportunity to own that you probably are exhausted. I wanted to share some data with you guys about COVID-19. As of May 13, nationally, we've seen over 500,000 people who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. And there's some stress, right? And some fear and some exhaustion that comes even with that. It's that secondary trauma, right? From, I may not know someone who has died from COVID-19, but just seeing this, right? And according to some data I pulled, 1 in 3 Black Americans report knowing someone who has died from COVID-19. And 1 in 5 Latina Americans know someone who died. While for white Americans, that's 1 in 10. So the stresses of just knowing someone, grieving someone, that even though I may not know you, I still grieve your loss. Then we look at the breakdown of COVID-19 by communities. Again, those of you who are very familiar with Chicago, we know that the South and West side of the city are primarily our Black and Brown communities, where again, COVID-19 really put that spotlight on the intentional disinvestment at times of these communities. And then there's how we've seen COVID-19 impact our systems and structures. Well, there's education. So we've seen this shift in education to remote learning. Our children who were then isolated, we see children who come to remote learning and they don't have their cameras on, right? For varieties of reasons. So that, again, isolation, the feeling of being alone and not quite engaged. We've seen the healthcare disparities, joblessness, housing, all of these systems, all of these structures, right? That while that are oftentimes rooted in racism. And I'm going to talk about that next. But more importantly, how do we see these systems impacting our students? If we as adults are tired, don't you know that they probably tired too? That they are sharing that same stress that we are feeling around all of these systems and even just the day-to-day existence. So, yep, we tired. All of these lovely animals let us know we are exhausted. And what I want to invite you all to do is to make space for that exhaustion. I want to encourage you all. I want to affirm that, yes, we are tired at times and we are exhausted at times, and we actually have to create space for ourselves. I want to encourage you all to give yourself permission. Yep, that's what I said. Give yourself permission to rest, to recharge, to restore, and to repair yourself. Because yes, you deserve it. All of the busies of the world will continue to be the busies of the world. You deserve to give yourself time and the space to acknowledge what you're experiencing and know that, yes, I'm here to tell you, you should be tired. And then there's racism, because that's still a thing. According to Eve Ewing, simply put, racism is as American as apple pie. And going back to our systems, right? How have we seen racism impact these systems? Well, there's, again, education. There's the healthcare industry, social economics, housing with the color tax. This, a couple of months ago, Organic Oneness, I don't know if y'all don't know that organization, a great organization. You all should absolutely check them out. Shout out to Saida and the amazing work that she's doing over at Organic Oneness. But Organic Oneness had this video on the color tax. This was something I had never heard of, but it was such a moving documentary around how folks of color, specifically Black folks, had been targets of a color tax, and how they were paying contracts for houses that they would then never own. These intentional ways that folks of color, again, Black folks, were systematically oppressed. And so I encourage you to do your work, right? Do your work in researching and learning about how all of these systems that are rooted in racism, how they are impacting to the fatigue that we all feel. And this can be the fatigue that you experience coming into your workspace, or again, the residuals that your students are feeling as a result of racism and its impacts. So as I was preparing for this, right, I said, I wonder, how popular is racism? Like, how are we really talking about racism? And what I learned was that in June of 2020, this is a Google trend. If you are not familiar with Google Trend, shout out to Michelle for showing me Google Trend. But Google Trend tracks from 2004 how a word is trending, right? And so I said, let me see, how is racism trending? And what I noticed is that you can see at that peak, 100 peak, that was in June of 2020. We know where our world was in 2020. So we know that conversations about racism are continuing to grow, right? We're continuing to have these conversations about racism, again, acknowledging that racism is real. Other ways that we know that we are acknowledging, and when I say we, I mean we as a people, acknowledging the realness of racism, these were New York sellers, New York Times bestsellers, all about race. And then the Netflix effect. While shout out to Netflix for highlighting and elevating all the beauty and the grace of Black folks and our history and our contribution to this country, we have seen this increase, right, in content around the contributions of folks of color. And while these things are great, what I want to make sure I leave you all with is this work is more than a trend. Having conversations about race, acknowledging that racism is still real without action, that absolutely causes more harm, and that disrupts someone's healing journey and process. We have been tired. We have been tired, and having to, and leaning on your Black colleagues or your students to share, right, their story, their struggle, their experience. We tired. We do not have that. And that emotional labor, right? I want to make sure that I let you all know that there is an emotional labor that comes with that. And my ask to you, my encouragement to you, what I hope you reflect on is this. With all of the harm that is going on, what do you personally do to make space for Black folks healing? What does that look like for our students? Have you done some homework? And one of our fellowship leaders, I said, when the camera goes off and when nobody's looking, what work will you do? When nobody's asking about, oh, did you read this book, right? when this is no longer the coffee table discussion, what are we as people really going to do to reckon with race? What are we really, really ready to sacrifice, to give in this time and in this moment? And I say this to you as educators because our kids know. They know. They have a sixth sense about themselves. They are assessing. And when you get in person, for sure, they're going to want to know, which side of history are you choosing to be on? And so I encourage you in this space, in this moment, to begin to think about, what side of history am I going to be on? And then how am I going to make space for my students? Okay. And then there's just this idea of space, right? That's physical space, how close I am to somebody, right? The mental, emotional space. I love this one down here. If you could get your emotional baggage down to a carry-on, right? I wish I could, right? I'm pretty sure I got that big old luggage that you got to pay $75 to check in on Southwest. Yep, pretty sure I got that one. But I want to get my emotional baggage down to a backpack. And I hope that we all make the effort to do that. So assessing space. As we think about this concept of space, I wanted us to think about this in this way. Have you all ever walked into a room and you like, nah, this ain't for me. And you walk right out? I know I'm not the only person. I know I'm not the only person. You went to that party and you was like, no, this ain't for me. Or you were in that staff meeting and they said that one thing, you was like, okay, camera off. Yeah, that's us assessing space. That's what you were doing. You were assessing space. You were determining if this is going to pour into me or is this going to take from me. And so I encourage us as we navigate our time, our days, our work, and even in our schools, right, that you assess the space. Because guess what your kids are? They are assessing. When they walk in there, the look and feel of your classroom, that is a thing for them. I encourage you to think about even your home. See, for me, I'm a love of art and all things beautiful. And when I bought my house, I said I want to love every single thing in my house. As you see behind me, I love her. And no, that's not me, but I love her, right? I made sure that everything in my house I loved because I want my space to always support my healing. And I encourage you all to do the same. So as you assess space, go into a space and be like, is this for me or no? Are these people for me or no? Setting boundaries and drawing lines is so crucial to your healing and your existence. Sometimes you can't talk to certain people. And that's assessing a space. Am I giving this person my mental space right now or no? I know you only gonna call and complain about something. I need somebody that's gonna celebrate me. Let me call this person. Right? And then taking time to think about myself. What am I bringing into the space? That goes back to our very first question about how am I really feeling? Because if I'm coming into this space and I'm feeling down, I'm feeling sad, I got some negativity, or I'm that husband, he ain't washed them dishes, or that wife, she ain't do right. Whatever I'm bringing that into the space. Okay. And then I want to shout out these four of, I mean, that's definitely plenty of amazing people that I could absolutely shout out. When we think about the power of space, right? When I think about how important it is to make space, to be a part of space. These were the first people I thought about. Rihanna gave a speech at NAACP and she told everybody, pull up. If you really want to be about dismantling racism, pull up. And I love that all of these women use their platform to make space. They show up full and authentic. Issa Rae got on that red carpet. She said, yep, I'm rooting for everybody Black. Yep. And that was such a beautiful thing for me to experience because I want to openly say, like, yeah, I show up every day for kids that look like me. Yep, I do. Right. And it doesn't mean that I don't care about others, but I show up in that way because I know that representation matters. And then as Lizzo, this is her lyric. She say, turn out, I'm 100%. Just being full and confident. And again, in her authentic self. And Tabitha, oh my God, I love Tabitha. If you all don't know Tabitha, please follow her on Instagram. But just this idea of just worthy. I am worthy to be in this space. I am worthy of sharing this with you. Now, I don't know about you, but I tell you about me. I find myself questioning my credentials. Are my credentials enough? Am I enough in a space? Yes, I am, and you are too. And so as you leave this space today, I want to remind you, assess your space. Know that you are worthy. Know that you deserve to be in the spaces you are. And you deserve to go in those spaces authentic and full and be present, and that you deserve to be there. It's not enough for us to just have a seat at the table. I want to be heard and understood at the table. And I encourage you to do the same. What does this look like in practice? So as I thought about how do I wrap this up for y'all, I wanted to make sure that I give you all some just in practice, practical things that you can do as it pertains to making space for healing. When you are, as an educator, working with other people, and again, I say this is for you as an educator, but also just as human beings, ask, what do you need? What do you need? What do you personally need for your own healing and well-being? What do you need? When you ask your students this question, what do you need to feel a part of this community, to have this sense of belonging, to have this sense of connectedness? But don't ask the question if you don't plan to do anything. Remember, acknowledgement without action, that's harmful. So ask this question of what do you need, and actually be prepared to do something. So creating opportunities in the classroom is so important that we begin to shift the power dynamics that we oftentimes see in classrooms. Remember, your students have just as much to teach you as you have to teach them. Creating opportunities for shared learning. I started off saying, y'all are my co-facilitators. I'm here to learn from you just like you want to learn from me. Acknowledgement, fostering relationships. Those things are so important. And know that sometimes it may not be you. You might not be the right person to foster a relationship with the student, to be on their healing journey with them. I remember when I worked at Deneen School of Excellence. I was a social worker there, y'all. And I remember one year we did some relationship mapping with, I think it was maybe our 7th graders. And I was certain, like, oh, I'm about to be everybody person. All the kids love me. Of course they do. So, you know, as adults, we do this relationship mapping where you go through all of the kids' names and you identify who, what adult feels connected to this kid. Tell you something to really try you and hurt your feelings at the same time. Let them kids tell you who they really got a relationship with. Miss Jointer was not the person. I was not everybody's person, but who was? Miss Angie was. Yeah, Miss Angie was the lunch lady. Miss Angie provided them, she loved on them. She provided them with food and nourishment, right? And so their exchange with her was different. Her expectations were different. And so I had to acknowledge when I was not the person to be on that student's healing journey. And I acknowledge you and I encourage you to do the same. When we think about physical environments, right, again, what are things in your room, in the space that you're in right now that promotes your healing? If you don't have something, begin to think about, first question, what do you need? For me in this space, right, we started this space off with music. Why? Because for me, music is my everything. It allows me to change my mood, to really ground me in whatever it is that I'm doing, sometimes to contain my excitement or to turn it on upside down, right? And so I offer you that advice to give your students that same thing. Let your students pick the music sometimes. They like music. Now, give some parameters. You might need to say the clean version or not this mumble jumble rap they got going on. I don't even understand it. I don't get it, but that's their thing, and make space for that. Emotional and mental environments, and how do we make space for that? Be vulnerable. Our young people want to know that you're human too. In my personal life, I also do therapy on the platform BetterHelp, and I share with my clients, not a lot, let me not say that, I'm not projecting, but there are times where I find like I am willing to be vulnerable, right? I am willing to be vulnerable even in space with you all, because I think there's an opportunity for us to have some shared learning. I can learn from you again, just like you can learn from me. I encourage you all to do some check-ins, to confront stigma, and to normalize having difficult conversations. Oftentimes, I think we shy away from conversations that may make us uncomfortable. And I want to encourage us to lean into them, as my lovely Michelle Obama, who, by the way, is my best friend in my mind. Michelle Obama and Cardi B are my 2 best friends, and I want to have tea with both of them. So shout out to anybody that know them. Please connect me, because I just want to know them. Thank you. All right. And lastly, before I leave you, I couldn't leave you without giving you some resources. So some things that you can definitely check out and read. I think all of these books have been helpful in my process and my journey. To watch America to Me, Long Shadow, oh my God, Long Shadow blew me out of the water, just sharing such rich history around slavery. And so I definitely encourage you all to check those things out. And then I have questions, or do y'all have questions? Because I'm here for you.
I want to encourage everyone now, and if you want to take your slides down, Tynisha, what we can do is, reopen so that we are all here present. Feel free to, without a doubt, raise your hand if you have a question. You can certainly also send questions in through the chat. I'll continue to be monitoring those. I want to thank you 100% from like the deepest levels of my heart. This was incredible, and it kind of moved me in places that I needed to be. And I hope that was the same for others. This is something that is going to resonate with me for the rest of the day, and I hope through the weekend. It was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I want to bring up a question as we think about ways of guiding our students. How do we reach out to the teachers and the parents as kind of working to demonstrate what it is that we're learning from you today as a means of really supporting them? What kinds of things would you find yourself thinking about that could guide us who work with families, who work with the students and want to engage the parents as well, so that they can think about how to also better be there given their own struggles and challenges?
So I think one is going back to that idea of acknowledgement, right? It's two parts. So first, let me start off with relationship, right? I think relationship, again, is key and is crucial when working with parents. And so leveraging the person who has the relationship, right, with the parent first. If it's not you. Now, if it's you and you have this relationship with parent, absolutely begin in the second part of this. But I think first, really rooting the exchange in the relationship with the parent first. Because I think with a strong relationship, I'm better able to receive, right, some comments, some feedback, some guidance from somebody that I have rapport with, as opposed to somebody that I don't know. And I'm like, why with my business, right? So the first thing I would say is assess relationship. And then what I would encourage us to do is to first start off with the acknowledgments of all of the stresses that parents are going through and that they are experiencing, and come with some resources, come with some opportunities that for parents to not only for the parents to hear something from you, but for you to then learn something from the parents, asking them, how are they managing? How are they navigating? What are some things that they're doing at home? And then perhaps offering suggestions, right? Because we want to validate and affirm that parents are doing the best that they can with what they have and what they know. Contrary to what I thought, I'm like, where's the rule book on parenting? Because there got to be one out there, but it's not. There's no rule book on parenting. And again, parents are doing the best that they can. And so really starting the conversation off, acknowledging that parents are doing their best, and meeting folks where they're at. That's something I had to learn very early in my career, right? Even though I, as a Black woman, and I work primarily with Black families and Black communities, my experience was different. I wasn't somebody's mama. I don't know, right? And so I had to meet my parents exactly where they were at. And I had to support them in the way that they were ready to be supported. And so don't discount their readiness, because that's equally important.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Are there other questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and to ask one, or certainly don't hesitate if you want. I will share that question if you put it into the chat.
Get on fire.
Hello? And it doesn't have to be a question. Does anyone have anything that they would like to actually reflect on?
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I have some reflection. I was going to say this. So Tynisha, I really, really appreciated you naming a big part of your talk to include the word space. And how do we define space and what space looks like And I didn't know how you were going to introduce this topic, but I really do enjoyed how you opened it up, because you were being your authentic self. So I'm looking at how you talked about space from a micro level all the way to the macro level. So starting with the individual within their own home, for example, going into the school space or other spaces. There's so much I want to say. So I'm trying to narrow it down to, to some of the audience members in this talk today, because I think, schools and spaces where young people are at, I think there's lots of opportunities to be so creative with space, especially in schools. Like, I love going into my kids' school because I'm looking for, like, how are they making it warm and inviting, right? But kids are also in spaces like, I work with children and adolescents. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I don't like the space in my department. We need to do a better job, right, Scott? I mean, I don't know, put us out on blast, but we do. We need to do a better job. My office, I try to make it very intentional, but it's dusty as heck, and I also think about, like, when kids go to their doctor's appointments, and we have some physicians here on this talk, and, like the pediatric spaces can look really warm and friendly. So everything just looks that way. So that's helpful. But you're also highlighting the importance of making space just to have conversations about things. And I feel like sometimes in the medical center, we are just like rushed to move things because we got to see the next patient. And everybody is just so eager to be seen by the doctor because we got to move on to the next thing. But I'm really encouraged. Like, I have the luxury in my office, I have a whole hour with a person. Sometimes it could be a little more depending on the situation, but typically it's an hour, and I can hold. We can start our session listening to music, or starting up the session like rituals and routines that we have for our kids. But for some of our pediatricians who are on this, or even doctors who are, maybe seeing adults, I'm wondering if anybody else want to chime in, like, how do they hold space to talk about what happened last summer? Like, how many people are making space to talk about the things that are so apparent and that are affecting health, but they just don't even talk about it? So I'm curious, I'm opening that up to other people too. And I know you talked about it as well and how you do it, but I really do like the fact that it's a nice reminder that space is just not the physical component. It's also the mental health component, which you're talking about. And we have to do that during, these times are still traumatizing. It really is. So I'll say that. Thank you for that.
No problem. And it's super valuable, right? I think about when I go to my dentist, I look forward to going to my dentist. I know who says that, but I do, right? Why? Because my dentist makes space for me. He knows what I do for a living. He talks to me about my work. We talk about random things, right? My doctor, she and we have such a great rapport. And it's because even with the rush, right? They acknowledge, like, hey, I got a patient behind you, right? But they make that a priority to still build that relationship with me. My one doctor, she says, listen, I need you to be my end of day appointment, because I need to end my day with you, because we get lost in the exchange. We love to talk about travel together. And so to the physicians on the line, seeing your patients as people first. See them as people first. How would you want someone to treat you? Imagine them as your mother, your daughter, right? Your son. Right. And you want them to know you and say your name right. Right. And practice. If you can't say it right, get it, practice till you get it right. But it's those just attempts that I think will connect us and will bond us, and they'll want to come to you.
Michelle King offers a question for us. What are the daily rituals needed for healing spaces, individually, collectively, and institutionally?
I definitely think that's a group, definitely something to sit with, right? And I invite you all to journal that, actually. Michelle and I are in a cohort together. Hey, girl. And so in our cohort, in our little group text, one of the things that we talk about is about, can you have healing without acknowledgement? And I'm going to offer that question to you all as well, along with Michelle's question about what are our daily rituals that we need to do. I'm going to offer you all this additional question. Can you make space for healing without acknowledgement of harm? And I don't have the answer to either of those questions. Let me be transparent. I don't, because I think that these are individual things. I don't want to tell you a bunch of rituals that you need to do and then you don't do them because they don't work for you, right? So I invite you to consider what will work for you. I know in my life, I'm checking myself every morning before I get up. I'm looking at my calendar. Which part of me can I elevate today, right? Which part of me do I have to protect? That's one thing that I do for me. But I think to your question, Michelle, and even thinking about institutionally, right? Is as institutions, are we welcoming people to be their full and authentic selves? Are we making the space? Am I allowing you to come in? Do I ask my people about their hair? Please don't touch my hair, right? Right. I had to explain my hair in like the last 3 years. Why am I explaining my hair, right? And something I know that's like, what? But like, that's the thing. And so I think just unpacking our policies, our protocols, our procedures as institutions. And does this make space for the people that I serve?
Do we have other responses, other thoughts that people would like to engage and introduce to us?
I have a question. Oh, this is wonderful. So when you talked about emotional and mental environment, you talked about carrying the burden. Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Ooh, Kimberly, why are you playing with me today? You only got 8 minutes and you gonna ask me that loaded question. I had to lean in for that one. Whoo, child. Let me take another sip of hope. It's Super Hope Cafe. They say it's okay not to be okay. So carrying the emotional burden. So as we're having this reckoning with race, right? I think people, some people, or at least I experienced it where folks, it feels like this idea of being burdened and tired is this new phenomenon, right? That this just happened with George Floyd, rest his soul, bless that man's life. But the reality of it is that Black folks been tired. We've been tired. We tired of code switching. We tired of explaining hair. We're tired of, we're tired. We're over it. We're exhausted, right? And the emotional burden that I speak of is now that everybody is on this, oh my God, we have to do diversity, inclusion, equity work. We got to do this work. We got to have these conversations, right? That sometimes even having those conversations can be an emotional burden for the folks of color, because we've had these conversations. We are all cried out. Do you hear me? I done told you that this policy or this practice or this procedure makes me feel this way. And if there is still no action, the fact that you're asking me again to rehash this same conversation, it's like pouring salt into a wound all over again. And that becomes emotionally burdensome. Like, it is a burden to have the same conversations over and over again. I need us all to do our own individual work, which is why as I put this together, I wanted to invite us to think about this from the individual lens as well as the collective lens, right? Because individually, there's some stuff I need to do when I come to space. When I come to my meeting, right, am I coming to this meeting ready to learn, ready to be engaged? And if I'm not, let me own that. And let me give that separation. So that may mean I have to turn my camera off today because I'm not ready. I'm not emotionally ready for this work, right? For this conversation. And so I think that, and I also think that for folks of color, specifically Black folks, right? We will normalize this. We will normalize that burden that we bear, right? Having to be the one to explain. I remember when I was in grad school, I got my MSW from UIC, and I was the only person of color in my full-time program, only Black woman. And so here I am in this program, right? Struggling because all we talking about is Black people. And I want to be like, yes, Black folks need to pull themselves up by their bootstrap. And then at the same time, I'm like, but yeah, no, yo, what about them systems, those intentional things, right? That got us to this space. And so I found myself in an emotional tug of war at all times, not knowing how to show up. I never felt like I had a space. And so to that question, the emotional burden is real. We cannot put the burden of explaining the work on the Black folks, right? We cannot put the work, the what is the work, what should I do, right, on Black folks. You can't go to the only Black person you know and invite them to Christmas now. Like nah, that's not okay. Now, what I do encourage us to do is build genuine and authentic relationships where I care about you just as one human being to the next. And I don't, and don't say I don't see race. You do, we all do, right? Acknowledge that. But I see you as a human being, and really striving to build those genuine connections with folks. And acknowledge that this has to be fatiguing. This has to be exhausted for you. I'm sorry, that question got me so pumped. I'm like, girl, play with me in 8 minutes. You know we tired. Yes, thank you, Michelle. Microaggressions.
As we settle into what was both really a key question, thank you, and also to a response that was, the depth was really key, and thank you. I do want to take a moment for us to poll who is here. I actually forgot to do this at the beginning, and so we'd like to do a poll right now that lets us know who you are so we can document who joined today. We will fill that out. That would be great. That helps us know who our audience is and to also be able to think about who we want to continue to engage. As we reach the last few moments, any additional questions that anyone feels that they would like to pose? Any last moments of thought or consideration? And we're seeing the results. And this is really, super impressive. I love that we have a really rich group outside of UFC who are joining us today too. Thank you so much. This is fantastic. And certainly for those who are interested, we will very much enjoy keeping you engaged with what is happening at Mansueto, and certainly with what we were continuing to do with the Trauma Interest Work Group. Tynisha today is our final talk for our series that we have done on schools and youth and our experience of COVID, and to end with space and to end with how we make space and time for both those who we work with and ourselves is absolutely key. We do have a form that we would like you to fill out, if you would do so, that tells us about your experience with today's talk. And all I can say to Tynisha, I am thinking throughout all of this, how can we continue to engage you and to have you work with us, because you have, without a doubt, made such space and time for us to learn from you, to work on how we will grow and how to actually take care of ourselves. And I can only thank you for what is so meaningful here.
Thank you guys so much. I am definitely here to be of service and resource to you. So please feel free to stay connected. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your lunch hour with me. To all my people, I love y'all. Thank y'all so much. And to my new people, because all y'all my people too. So don't think y'all not the people. Y'all my people too. We all in here together. So thank you so very much for this opportunity and this space.
I just want to charge everybody, like, going back to your point, Tynisha, like, how are you all going to create space moving forward? So if you want to put in the chat or just making it intentional, but the theory of planned behavior suggests we take an action plan. So I'm just throwing it out there. Anyways.
Yes, and Kimberly, I agree 100%. We definitely need an ongoing series with Dr. Jointer as she moves towards that role. And I would love to see you move into that role.
We got to give me a PhD, y'all.
Yes.
I'm here for it. I got the time, so let's do it. Why do like Dr. Phil. I feel like his PhD. Oh, let me not shade.